We don't even know if the vaccine worked or not at the time.
Yes, that's what the trials are, dude. That's why these trials. Are you missing data out there?
Neil deGrasse Tyson joined Patrick Bet-David on his show to talk about vaccines and vaccine mandates. Patrick Bet-David is coming at this from more of a freedom of choice, government overreach perspective, while Neil deGrasse Tyson approaches it from a scientific and evidence-based standpoint. Now, he's not a virologist, he's an astrophysicist, but I still think this conversation is really valuable. This clip is about a year old, but I wanted to share it because it's a really clear example of someone speaking calmly and rationally about a complicated issue where there aren't always easy or perfect answers, especially when responding to arguments that aren't always grounded in facts or common sense. Before we dive in, take a second to subscribe for more content like this. I'm going to try not to talk over it too much because Neil actually does a great job explaining things on his own. And then I want to hear what you think in the comments. Let's get into it together.
From what we knew at the beginning of COVID to what we know today, what do we know about the vaccine today that we didn't know while we were all testing it in America, taking it? What have we learned now?
What do you mean testing it on America? There were tests before it was released.
9 months is not a long time to test.
No, but it was tested.
Yeah, but 9 months. The average is 30. The average is 5 to 10 years. I mean, 9 months is not enough.
Okay, so you have to
test.
No, you have to ask. Hold on. It was tested in trials. Okay. By the way, I'm not claiming to be the expert on all this. I read all the same things you have, but I'm a scientist, so I read it as a scientist. Okay. There were trials. That's what the point of phase 1, 2, 3 trials are all about. They are tested enough to get data on how to then advise the larger population. Yes, it was tested. For you to say it wasn't tested is a gap between your awareness and understanding how things work and what actually happened. It was tested. If you want it to be tested on millions of people instead of thousands, you can put in for that. You can say, I don't want this unless it's millions. That's okay.
Just to summarize that point, because I think it's really important, the first thing Patrick Bet-David said was that the vaccine wasn't tested. Neil deGrasse Tyson immediately corrected that and said, yes, it was. And then the follow-up became, well, okay, but it wasn't tested enough, right? And honestly, you see this a lot on the right. It starts with something that's just flat out untrue. Then when that gets corrected, it shifts into something more vague, like, well, technically, maybe, sort of, instead of just acknowledging the original claim wasn't accurate.
To me, okay. I'm okay with that.
That's fine. So based on that, do you say, let's keep testing it while the virus keeps spreading? Okay? Right. So this is the contest between the information you have available to you at that moment and what's going on outside the lab. People are dying. Hospitals are becoming overloaded. So, do you say, we have good data on the 1,000, it's not yet at 1 million, in case you wanted 1 million. Are you going to say, let's still do it let's wait another 6 months so we get another 1 million in here? Will you do that as a public health professional?
No, I would have said, allow the individual to still have a choice that's okay with 1,000 instead of a few million. Leave the person have the choice. Not force him to take it or else you're going to get out of the Marines, and you've been doing this for 14 years. Not force him to take it or else you have to quit your job as a nurse.
There's a public health
force versus
there's a
choice.
There's a public health contract that you have signed implicitly as a citizen of a country where in part we depend on each other for health, our wealth, our security, and the like. And that contract is, in the best scientific evidence available at the time, if you do not get vaccinated, you will put other people in this organization at risk, and that organization does not want to take that risk. So you do not have this job anymore if you decline it. So with any public health decision, there has to be a consequence to you not participating in that social contract. Is it your job? In some cases it was. But no, we're not going to have the army bust into your home and force a needle into your shoulder. That's not going to happen.
We pretty much did that.
Well, only put your job at risk, yes.
Yeah, 67% of Americans took the COVID. That's force. That's not a choice. That's a lot of force and coercing and pushing going on. But
based on what data? I took the vaccine myself. I wasn't reluctant. Nobody forced me, and I didn't feel pressured into it. I made a decision based on the information available at the time, just like millions of other people did. And I know plenty of people in my own life who also chose to get vaccinated voluntarily. So you can't just jump to this idea that because, say, 67% of the country took the vaccine, that automatically means they were all coerced. That's just not how reality works. Some people were required to get it for certain jobs, sure, but a lot of people made that choice because they wanted to protect themselves, their families, or vulnerable people around them. You actually need evidence before making claims like that, not just vibes or assumptions.
That's you can't go to the school unless you're vaccinated against mumps.
I think that's bullshit.
That's a different country.
Yeah, but
okay, would you want a country?
No, America is supposed to be the one that offers the most freedom. That's what America is supposed to be.
Okay, so watch.
So for example, if you use that argument, somebody may say, well, freedom of choice, I want to choose what I want to do with the body. You're right.
What body?
If you want to get an abortion, it's your choice.
Your own body. Your own body.
If you want to get an abortion, get an abortion. If I want to get the vaccine, I get to choose. So you can't force. If I can't force you to get an abortion, you shouldn't be able to force me to get
because it's not about you. It's about people you interact with, and that's the social contract of public health.
We don't even know if the vaccine worked or not at the time.
Yes, that's what the trials are, dude. That's why these trials. Are you missing data out there?
But let me ask you a question. Are we saying only one type of scientists are right?
No, we're saying that the system in place,
the 16,000 that signed that.
No. The system in place to test vaccines. Yeah. There's an entire system that's in place. That with review boards and all of it,
and the average
that's in place. Now you can say what you can say is, I have a better idea than all these review boards and all these agencies and the CDC. I have a better idea. Here's what you should do, and that would have made everything better. Okay, you can put forth that idea, but what I'm saying is, in a case where you can contaminate someone else, it's not about you. It's about the collective health.
You're assuming because somebody can take the vaccine, won't get COVID, which, by the way, I don't need to play the clips for you to see it, where everybody said, hey, if you get it, you're not going to get, if you take the vaccine, you're not going to get a Rachel Maddow, Joe Biden. I can give you Fauci. I can give you, and you've seen these clips before. It's not like you've never seen it before.
Yeah, what happened
They were wrong.
Hold on. So, the strain evolved. Okay, so that the vaccine that prevented you from catching COVID was tuned to the variant of COVID at the time the vaccine was designed. Okay, over time there were variants that arose. The vaccine provided partial protection against the new variants, enough to keep you from dying statistically, and to basically keep you out of the hospital, allowing other people with more severe problems to get the hospital attention they required. And so then they would develop the booster and a subsequent mixture of the vaccine. This is what happens every year with a flu shot. They look at how the flu has evolved from one season to the next. And what's fortunate is Australia tends to get the variant of flu before we do, because they get their winter in our summer, and so we study that, have a forward projection for it. So these annual flu shots are precisely out of the same idea of how this occurs.
How long have those been tested, though? For years. COVID vaccine hasn't been tested for it. It was something we just came out. But let me.
I don't know what point you're making, other than it was tested. You might
9 months is not enough.
You might prefer. No, it's not a matter of time. It's a matter of how many. Yes, time matters, but the number of people is paramount. That's the most important thing, okay? You don't test it on 10 people. You test it on as many people as you can.
Sure.
I think it was thousands, but
is it fair to say that some of the side effects we may not know for 5, 10, 15, 20 years? You can't, they can't say we know 100% the side effects 10 years from now. How are you going to know that?
Yeah, okay. So no, of course, we can't know that.
So then all I'm saying is...
Watch. We can't know that.
Okay.
But watch. So I have a whole chapter called Risk and Reward in the book, which tries to sensitize people to when they make a decision, what kind of risk are they absorbing relative to what they're rejecting, okay? And we're not very good at that, at probability and statistics or analyzing it. That's why TV commercials trying to sell you a product don't just show you data, they show a person speaking of the effectiveness of the product. A single person. I lost 50 pounds. The testimony of an individual should be irrelevant to you relative to the entire set of people who have done it. And you want to look at those statistics, but we're not good at that. And advertisers know that. So they show the testimony of an individual, which is hugely potent in a civilization where we don't think statistically, we think about eyewitness testimony on something, and somehow that is raised to a very high level of influence on our decisions. What I'm saying is, you're not your decision point is not, I'm not going to take the virus because 5 years, 10 years, I don't know what effect it's going to have.
Some may, though. Some may not be comfortable with
Let me finish the sentence. Okay, so you can say, I don't want to take the virus because 5 or 10 years from now, there could be a side effect that we don't see.
Which is a possibility.
Hold on. I'm trying to make a statistical point here, okay? If you say, I don't want to take the virus because it hasn't been tested for 5 years and there could be some long-term side effect that worries me, okay? In that same moment, there's the risk factor of you getting COVID.
Sure.
Okay? Unvaccinated. At one point, 87% of everyone dying in the hospital of COVID was unvaccinated. Okay, so your risk choice is, I'm not going to take it because maybe somewhere down the line something will happen and we don't know what that is, or I will risk getting COVID, and if I get COVID, depending on your age and other things, there's a 3% chance of me dying in the hospital. That's your choice. Yes. Yes, but what I see people doing is they focus on one thing, and that's the foundation of their decision, rather than the other chance. And what happens if you get COVID? Now you get long COVID. Now you don't have a taste buds for 2 years or whatever it is for long COVID.
Yeah.
You're on a ventilator in the hospital, possibly dying. Like what? Where is the? So I looked every day, once a week. I looked at the statistics. How many people are getting COVID? What's the rate? What's the rate of hospitalization? What's the rate of deaths? Where is it by state?
I had to look at it. My board forced me to look. We're in the business that we have to look at.
They should,
of course,
because it's data.
Yeah, I agree.
On risk factors,
the risk of people's lives.
Okay,
for sure.
So nothing is ever zero risk. Yeah, there's a risk that you'll grow a third arm in 10 years because the virus mutates within you.
Should the individual not have the right to say, I don't want to take it because that?
You don't have the right to contaminate someone else. So if you don't want to get shot,
who says that though? But who says that?
It's a social contract in a modern civilization.
I don't have
public health.
I don't have the right to contaminate someone else. What do you mean? Like, so what do I do? Stay home all day?
Yeah, or it's go to the beach. Yeah, you stay away from other old people who
but
you stay away from people who are immune compromised.
So Neil, so for me, I'm asking you because I want to know how you process this as a guy that's well-read, smart.
I process the data, and the data.
We didn't have enough data, though.
No,
we didn't have enough data
at any given moment.
Yeah.
There's data for you to make a decision at any given moment.
Sure.
The data is constantly getting better and better.
Yeah.
All right. So, at any given moment, you say to yourself, okay, what happens to me if I get COVID? There's a chance I'll get long COVID. I'm certainly out for at least a week. And there's a chance I'll be hospitalized. And there's a chance I'll die.
Mm-hmm.
I take the vaccine. It mitigates this, basically entirely removing the chance that I'm going to die, essentially, at my age group. And I will accept the risk that in 5 years I'll grow a third arm. That's the kind of decision making that I make. Now, that's just for me, but on top of that, if my workplace says, we don't want you coming in unless you are vaccinated and you might lose your job, I would say, why? Oh, because you could contaminate someone else, introducing a problem in their own health profile. That's the public contract. That's why workers wash their hands in the restaurant bathrooms by law. Yes, they're required to do so because you don't want poop germs in your dinner that they're preparing. Because our evidence showed that that's one of the greatest places you can spread disease is in a restaurant with a central kitchen. So this is the now you want a world where you can do whatever you want and have it influence other people.
I'm not saying that.
You kind of are.
The truth of the matter is COVID was a particularly insidious disease, and I don't think people fully appreciate just how dangerous that aspect of it really was. You could have it for days, even a couple of weeks, be completely asymptomatic, feel totally fine, and still be out here spreading it to other people without knowing it. You're going to work, you're seeing family, you're going to the grocery store, you're living your normal life, and meanwhile, you're unknowingly passing along something that could seriously harm or even kill someone who's older, immunocompromised, or just unlucky. And that's what made COVID so different from a lot of other illnesses. It wasn't just about how sick you personally felt, it was about what you could be doing to other people without realizing it. That's why public health measures, vaccines, and precautions weren't just about individual choice in a vacuum. They were about collective responsibility, about trying to slow the spread long enough for hospitals not to get overwhelmed and for doctors and nurses to have a fighting chance to save lives. And I think that part of the conversation got completely lost in a lot of political shouting and culture war nonsense. That's also why I really like this discussion, because it actually focused on nuance instead of slogans. It wasn't just freedom versus control or science versus feelings. It was people actually talking through a complicated situation where there were no perfect answers, just better and worse ones. And honestly, I think conversations like this are way more productive than the stuff we usually see, where everyone just talks past each other and nobody learns anything. So yeah, I really appreciated this exchange, and I'm genuinely curious what you think. Do you agree with how this was framed? Do you think COVID policy could have been handled better? Or do you think people underestimate how difficult that moment really was? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I want to hear what you have to say.